Carole Brody Fleet is the award-winning author of the critically acclaimed and national bestseller, Widows Wear Stilettos. Happily, even after, a guide to getting through and beyond the grief of widowhood. And the author and executive producer of the best-selling CD, Widows Wear Stilettos, What Now? She is also the founder and CEO of Widows Wear Stilettos, Inc. Widely recognized as a leader in the area of grief and loss recovery, you may have seen Carole on such shows as Good Morning America, the CBS Evening News, and many other television shows around the country. Carole appears as a regular guest, expert on numerous radio programs throughout the United States and Canada, as well as in publications such as USA Today, Women's World Magazine, More Magazine, Psychology Today, the New York Times, the Chicago Tribune, and hundreds of newspapers, magazines, and websites, both nationally and internationally. From Lake Forest, California, please welcome Carole Brody Fleet.
Thank you, Lynette. Good morning. I'm so honored to be with all of you today, and I first want to thank the Inside Edge, Dr. Adrian. I want to thank everybody for having me here today. It's such an honor, and excuse my voice, but I am quacking a lot these days. I am thrilled to be here to discuss with you a subject that most people tend to shy away from because, let's face it, it's not a really happy subject. And that subject is loss. And the reason that people are shying away from it and don't want to talk about it is that we think if we don't talk about loss, it's not going to happen. And the cruel joke is that it's going to happen. And if we don't talk about it, it just keeps us ill-prepared to deal with it when it does happen. You know, I was once a wife in a very typical family. After 15 years in the legal profession, I was enjoying my new career, my reinvention, as a sales director for a major cosmetics company. My husband, Mike, was a 28-year veteran of the Santa Ana Police Department, and he'd set national records in the seizure of drugs and drug money, and those are records that stand to this day. We were working hard and raising our daughter, Kendall, who was 9 at the time, and we were genuinely enjoying our life until September of 1998, which is when Mike was diagnosed with ALS, or what is more commonly known as Lou Gehrig's disease. For just over 2 years, Mike battled his illness bravely and with a lot more courage than I could ever imagine having to muster. And on December 19th, 2000, Mike's battle with ALS came to a peaceful end, and thus began a journey into a new life, a life that I did not sign up for, and an apparent destiny that I did not choose. And yet, eventually, mine became a life, once again, filled with love, with joy, and with incredible personal fulfillment. So how did that happen? The first and most natural reaction when anything catastrophic happens to us is, why me? Anybody feel that way? Why me? I began singing the Why Me blues immediately after Mike was diagnosed. Naturally, you know, the doctor said all the typically uplifting things. We're going to fight this. Don't give up. We're not going to give up. But no matter what the doctor said, no matter how cheerful the facade, I knew the truth. My Michael, my husband, my best buddy of almost 20 years, and loving daddy was going to die. And it was going to be sooner rather than later. I didn't much bother with being, you know, sad or upset. I just went to straight, flat out angry. I was mad. My husband had dedicated 28 years of his life to service in the community and served 2 tours in Vietnam prior to that. We were good people in a good marriage, raising a good family, doing all of the right things. And we were rewarded with an illness that was eventually going to take my husband, along with all of our plans for the future. Somebody needed to explain this to me. So one day I was railing away and singing the Why Me blues to our rabbi, and he responded with an answer that I didn't like much, and you're not going to like it much either. He looked at me and said in a very matter-of-fact tone, "Why not you?" Really? I looked at this man like he had two heads. How dare he say something so insensitive? Why not? I'd just given him a list of why not. We're wonderful people. My husband was a fantastic human being. Our life as a family is being destroyed. Our 9-year-old daughter gets to watch her daddy die. I'm pretty sure we don't deserve this to happen to us. Well, after patiently listening to my rant, the rabbi posed a very interesting question. If not you, who should this be happening to instead? Think of all the good, decent, loving people you know just like yourselves, and tell me, if not you, who does deserve this? As much as I hated to admit it, he was 100% right. There's no argument. In times of loss or tragedy or challenge, most of us are going to have a few moments of anger, along with a whole bunch of unanswered questions, the first of which is usually, why me? And that's okay. It's normal. And I really encourage people to embrace what they're feeling at that moment in time. To me, though, the greater pity would have been to stay in the anger or in the bitter or in everlasting mourning or in whatever emotion that might have prevented us from moving forward into a life of abundance and happiness. So after Mike's death, instead of spending any more time on the why me, I started focusing on the what now. I started my days by asking myself, what am I going to do today to help myself and my daughter heal and move forward? The lesson here, here's your takeaway, is that continuing with a why me mindset does absolutely nothing to change your situation. Deciding to work on the what now will. You know, sooner or later it happens. Life is going along just great, or maybe even going along just normally, just the day-to-day. And that's about the time that life will throw you that cliched curveball. We were talking about cliches, curveball. With all due respect to the sport of baseball, and those of you who are fans, for our purposes today, curveball is any event, any at all, that is unexpected, life-altering, core-shaking, and generally speaking, unwelcome. Usually coming out of nowhere, hence the term, curveballs vary widely. But they can include events such as a life-threatening health situation, the loss of a loved one, the loss of a job, a miscarriage, a divorce or breakup of a relationship, the loss of a pet, or sadly in more recent years, the loss of a home, the loss or compromise of financial security, or even a loved one's military deployment overseas. So how do you move forward after loss or tragedy or a life challenge or difficulty? How do you go from fetal position to forward focused? Because that's where I started. You choose to. It's your choice. Now, at first blush, that sounds a bit simple and completely obvious. Who wouldn't choose to move forward in a positive way? And the answer is a whole bunch of people. Many people prefer to stay miserable than learn how to take the steps that they need to begin to take to move forward. That's why so many people choose to stay in destructive relationships or jobs that they hate or remain in a state of mourning because they choose not to do anything proactive to change it. The fact is that we will remain the same until the pain of remaining the same becomes greater than the pain of change. So it's a choice. It's your choice. You can go ahead and allow grief and bitterness and sorrow to consume you, or you can make the choice to begin what we call the healing journey. So how do you begin? First, realize that you are really entitled to be sad about your loss, whatever that loss entails, and regardless of what people around you are telling you to do. Because here's the deal. We live in a hurry-up society now. These days, our meals come to us in a paper bag through a window or after 3 minutes in a microwave. Guilty. We have disposable diapers, razors, and cameras. You use it once and throw it away. Out with mellow, in with multitasking. You know, people brag on how little sleep they can get by on. I don't know when this became popular, but I didn't get that memo. So there's little that hurts my heart more than hearing someone say after a loss, it's been 3 weeks, or it's been 2 months, or it's been a year. Why am I still sad? because it's only been 3 weeks or 2 months or a year. Of course you're still sad. The fact is, a majority of people have extremely unrealistic expectations as to recovery from trauma or challenge and can't figure out why they're still crying after a few weeks or after a few months. You've got to get realistic about whatever it is you've been through and that from which you're recovering. You simply cannot deal with any kind of loss or life challenge in a drive-through, disposable, microwave, hurry-up fashion. Our hurry-up society is trying to demand that we hurry up with grieving, and it needs to stop. Regardless of whatever loss you're coping with or that you've coped with in the past, you are entitled to be just plain sad. Now, I'm not sure when it became necessary for us to start hiding our feelings, especially after loss, but apparently there's a lot of it going on out there, and that needs to come to a stop too. I totally understand that we need to go to work and take care of the kids and keep the household going. I get that. I had to do it too. I also understand that while in the midst of all those activities and in that moment, putting on a front might be necessary. Temporarily. Hold on to that word. Putting on a front can also mean that you might not be allowing yourself the opportunity to grieve your loss, which is a really important lesson that Toby just taught us a few minutes ago when he talked about going to work and then going home to cry. He went home and he dealt with the grief when he allowed himself to do that. And that's an important takeaway this morning, folks. I teach that feelings that get avoided or put away or stuffed down inside are feelings that will come back to bite you. This is guaranteed. It's a promise. It's not if, it's when. Now, since I'm fluent in the language of makeup and cosmetics, let's look at this another way. Approximately 99% of all women wear just about, some kind of makeup or use cosmetics, and in my case, about every kind of makeup, okay? Now, it's true, my face comes out of a jar, I don't have a problem with that. Now, what would happen if we didn't take the makeup off and we just kept piling on more and more makeup? The skin underneath would get pretty disgusting. I mean, it makes you feel kind of disgusting to think about it. Now, I want you to think about putting on a brave front, be it in front of your children, your parents, your friends, your work colleagues, the world at large. If you never take that front off in order to grieve and move through your pain, guess what? The soul underneath suffers. Just like we cleanse ourselves daily to ensure health and good hygiene, you've got to take the front off in order to cleanse our souls. And guys, this means you too, okay? You can put on fronts, you can put on masks, you can be the star of your very own full-length play entitled, "Look at how I'm dealing with this so great." But the only person on the planet that you are not going to fool is you. Next, you need to surround yourself with the right kind of support, starting with the people who surround you. Think carefully who surrounds you on a regular basis. I have long taught that every single person in this room and in the world fits into one of two columns: energy givers and energy drainers. And everyone right now is going, yeah, energy drainers. That's the first thing that everybody thinks about. Energy givers are fantastic. They're the people that bring a smile to your face. You're better for having spent time in their space. They're enthusiastic, they're positive and uplifting. Their attitude is contagious. It doesn't mean that energy givers don't have challenges of their own. They just choose not to lend power to negativity. Most of the energy givers that I'm blessed to know they've had incredible obstacles to overcome, whether it's loss or health challenges. They've had to climb some mountains too, but not once will you ever hear an energy giver complain about their lot in life. That's the kind of support I'm talking about. People who are going to boost your spirits and lift you up and support your efforts and celebrate your triumphs, no matter how large or small. Now, to the contrary, energy drainers are just that. Draining. Spend enough time with an energy drainer and you'll feel like someone just let all the air out of your tires. When you ask them, now, and I know all of you are thinking about somebody right now. Doesn't matter who they are, you're thinking about them. When you ask them how they are, they will tell you in detail. It's never good. Their job stinks. They're full of aches and pains and ailments all the time. The dog has fleas. The oven door is broken. They're always tired. They are the living example of the cartoon character with the cloud over its head. Is anybody old enough to remember that? Or just me? Okay. An energy drainer's glass is not just half empty. The energy drainer's glass is half empty, and there's a cigarette butt in the bottom, and there's some dribble holes and a lipstick stain. Just ask them. Being around energy drainers will absolutely bring you down and keep you that way. Misery doesn't just love company. Misery loves a great big audience, and they want you to be in the front row seat. Get away from them. Get away, get away. Sometimes it's not easy getting away from energy drainers. You might work with them. You might even be related to them. If you can't get away from them entirely, try to limit your time with energy drainers, and then get yourself around your energy givers fast, the people who will support your healing journey and your moving forward. Now, very important is the understanding, because too many people aren't doing this. Any step forward that you take, no matter how seemingly small or insignificant, is a step forward, and you need to get excited about it. You know, a few years ago, I coached a woman. She was in her early 30s, and at that point, she'd been widowed for about 4 years. Her husband had died of a massive heart attack in their shower, and 4 years later, she felt like she hadn't made any progress at all. In fact, her husband's dress pants were still folded over the railing at the end of their bed. And worse, the people around her were saying, well, you should be over it by now, and you have to go through his things, and you got to do this, and what's the matter with you? And this only made her feel like she wasn't in her right mind. So after listening to her story and her obvious desire to want to move forward but not knowing how to start, I asked her if we could set a goal together. And she said, sure. I said, let's see in the next 30 days if you can hang up your husband's pants. And she sounded surprised. And she said, you mean I don't have to get rid of them? I said, no. Just in 30 days, let's see if you can hang up the pants in the closet. And about a week after that, I received an email from this gal, and you could feel the energy coming through the computer. She'd hung up the pants, and you could sense the triumph. And just by taking what sounds like a small, maybe insignificant step, she finally began her healing journey. This brings us to the next baby step on the healing journey, the realization that it is indeed okay. You know, we receive thousands of letters every month through the website at widowswearstilettos.com, and over, I see the words, is it okay? Is it okay to go to a movie? Is it okay to laugh? Is it okay to take a vacation during the holidays? Is it okay to pursue hobbies or passions or interests? Is it okay to wear my rings? Is it okay to take my rings off? Or my personal favorite, am I cheating on my late or ex-husband, boyfriend, fill in the blank? If I date again, it's my favorite. Regardless of who or what you've lost, the answer is now and will always be, it is okay. If you've got to put that on your bathroom mirror every morning, folks, do it. It is okay. It's okay to live again. It's okay to laugh again. It's okay to take vacations. It's okay to change jobs or careers or homes or cities or states, right? Who changed from Oregon to California? That's right. It's okay. And most of all, it's okay to love again as well. You see, there's something amazing going on right out there that too many people are missing out on. It's called life. Remember, just by nature of the fact that you're here, you're entitled to all of the possibilities that life has to offer you. Why would you consciously choose to miss out on that or listen to anyone who would encourage you to miss out on that? And one of the most important things that it's okay to do is seek help. It is not a sign of strength to try and get through a challenge alone, nor is it a sign of weakness to say, you know what, I need help with this. Whether it's to cope with the loss of a loved one or finding a new job, if you need to, seek the help of people who are in a position to help. It's okay. Another lesson that I love to teach is the ability to love again, because it is such a huge hot button issue, regardless of how a previous relationship ended. Here's a news flash. The capacity of the human heart is literally without limits. If it weren't, we would all have one child and that would be the end of it, right? why is this such an important lesson? Because too many people, both the grieving and the opinionated around them, believe that by moving forward, you are either casting aspersion on or completely forgetting about the past. I have great news for you. You can treasure your past. You can honor your past. You can, and you certainly should, love your past. You don't have to live in your past. You know, 11 and a half years has passed since I lost Mike, and I can tell you without reservation that I still love him. Absolutely still love him. I treasure the life that we had together. It was a great life. Why wouldn't I treasure that? Now, that said, I've also moved forward into a beautiful new life. Our Kendall, who was 9 years old when Mike was diagnosed, is now a young adult on her own and enjoys a thriving career. I fell in love with a wonderful man who actually fell in love with me too, and we married, and that didn't put you on the spot in the least, did it? And together with his fantastic daughter, Michelle, we have built a beautiful blended family. And he is an incredible teammate in the widowed community and our work that we do. And to top it all off, I get to live my life's passion by being on a mission of service and support to others in need. Now, by living this incredible new life, does that mean that I've forgotten or betrayed my past? No. Does it mean that after Mike died, I should have stayed inside the house in the flannel penguin print pajamas with the feet in them? There's a visual for you to take away. What would that have accomplished? It would not have changed anything. You can honor your past. You can treasure your past. You can love your past. You don't have to live in the past. You know, when Mike died, our grief permeated every area of our lives. It felt all-encompassing, it felt never-ending, and it was totally overwhelming. But happily, even after, through a few trials and a lot of errors, and with a decision to get serious about getting strong, I did develop a roadmap for recovery that can be utilized after just about any kind of loss or life challenge. First, we got to start with the realities. A reminder that you cannot ever forget that just by being here, you need to feel a sense of entitlement, that you are entitled to all of the abundance and happiness and opportunity that life has to offer you. And then you've got to get ready to go chase those opportunities, because folks, those opportunities are not going to chase after you. Next, you need to recognize, this is so important, that your healing journey is yours alone. It doesn't belong to anybody else. You are actually in charge of that healing journey. And by making the choice, it's that word again, to take baby steps forward, you can again lead a life that is filled with more smiles and sadness. It does not happen overnight. And maybe today, right now, life doesn't feel especially fantastic to you. That's okay for the time being. Remember that in spite of, or maybe because of, whatever you might be going through now or have been through and endured, you're entitled to return to a life of happiness. Too many people, and I'm guilty of this, too many people are afraid of being a burden or inconveniencing those who are genuinely anxious to help you. If people offer you help or assistance, take it. And here's where I humble myself. Years ago, I was afraid of accepting help with caring for a terminally ill husband while parenting a 9-year-old and being the sole breadwinner to our family, because I thought it meant I was a failure. And I thought I'd be perceived as a failure. I felt that I had failed as a wife, and I'd failed as a mother, and I'd failed as a provider. At the expense of my own health, which renders you useless to anybody if you're not taking care of yourself, I eventually learned that the people closest to me were really eager to help. So accepting help does not signify failure or weakness, nor does it signify strength when you try and handle things alone. Now, if you yourself have been stricken by illness, or have an illness or bereavement or other challenge in your family, people are naturally going to volunteer their time and assistance. Accept the help. If you've lost a job and a friend asks what they can do to help, don't just say that you're doing fine, because there's that front again. Tell them what they can do. Ask them who they know. Give them a copy of your resume and talk to everyone. Don't hide that. If you've endured a painful divorce or a breakup and your friends want to take you out to dinner or lunch or cocktails, go. You'll feel better. Your friends become a great asset on your healing journey, and you never know who you might wind up meeting. I also want you to embrace the fact and the reality that there are going to be days where you're going to be angry or melancholy or feel like you're having a setback. I hate that word, people. A setback implies that you're right back where you started from. You've just negated all of the progress you've made in moving forward. And I don't even care if your loss was 10 minutes ago. No such thing as setbacks, okay? You're here this morning. That means you're moving forward. You're being positive. You're being proactive. And as long as you are continuing to move forward in a positive, proactive way, a setback isn't possible. You must give permission to yourself in all aspects of a healing journey. Permission to cry, permission to be angry, permission to be in charge of your healing journey, permission to laugh. And if you still feel like you're suffering a setback, tell yourself this: a setback lets me take a step back to set up for a comeback. I know that sounds corny, but it works. Don't minimize the progress that you've made by deciding that bad day equals setback. Hold on to the certain promise that it always, always gets better. Right, Ravi? We had a great table discussion. I wish you guys could have all been at our table. It was awesome. Now, once again, I'm going to talk about the people around you, because maybe you do have an idea of what a huge issue that is and what a huge influence that is. You're going to have people around you that are going to have opinions and observations as to your situation, and those opinions might not necessarily be helpful or positive or even supportive. You've got to be careful about the people you surround yourself with on a regular basis. For example, people who were once in my life, is the key word here, once believed and told me, once a widow, always a widow. Yeah, oh, it gets better. But, in other words, and in their opinion, I'd caught my limit. I didn't get to be in love anymore. Didn't matter that all of the moping and mourning in the world was not going to bring Mike back. I was expected to be grieving for the rest of my life. I decided that while widowhood definitely shaped me, it was not going to define me. Folks, there's a difference there. I wasn't going to allow that definition. Widowhood was a destiny that I did not choose. And if I didn't choose a destiny, I don't want it. That singular decision enabled me to continue moving forward and turn a deaf ear to the naysayers of the world, none of whom, by the way, had ever experienced widowhood firsthand. Interesting. Here's another example of negativity versus positive expectancy. And these are actual statistics, folks. It's estimated that only 1 in every 10,000 proposed book manuscripts each year are produced by traditional publishing houses. Less than half of those are by new, unknown, and unpublished authors. Those are really discouraging numbers. But what would have happened 6 years ago if I'd paid attention to those numbers or listened to the people that told me you'll never have success in this industry? And they did. Negative people are negative for a reason, and they want to impose their choice to be miserable on you. Don't let anyone decide your destiny for you, because if you think you can, you can. And if you think you can't, you're right. There you go. Now, anyone who's known me for longer than 10 minutes knows that one of my favorite teaching tools is this. What is it in your life that is so big that it has either the right or the ability to keep you from your dreams and your happiness? What is it that is so huge that it has the power to keep you from living a life of abundance? Your answer must always and forever be absolutely nothing. Don't let any curveball event become so gargantuan that it takes over your existence and prevents you from living the life that you want. You may right now, this moment, feel like there's no point in getting up to greet the new day. But you have to get stubborn and you have to get serious about getting strong. Consciously decide that the combination of loss and challenge and tragedy and negative viewpoints, all rolled up into one, are not enough to stop you from living the life that you deserve and that you choose, there's that word again, to live. With rare exception, we are where we are because of the choices that we've made or because of the choices that we've allowed other people to make for us. You do have control over your destiny, and the actions that you take today can determine destiny tomorrow. I just said don't let anyone decide your destiny for you. Don't let life circumstances decide your destiny for you either. Define the destiny that you want. Get excited about life. Get excited about your career. Get excited about your kids. Get excited about the people you love. Get excited about where life is taking you next. Get excited. Choose to refuse to lead a sad, half-baked, mournful, ho-hum life. I'm a little passionate about that. Now, here's a quick question. Those of you who have suffered any kind of loss at all, raise your hand. Any kind of loss. Doesn't matter what kind of loss you've suffered. Raise your hand. Okay, keep your hands up. Keep your hands up if you've ever been told at least once in your entire life, time heals all wounds. Okay, now, when you heard those words, how many times did you have to stifle the urge to hit the person in the face with a brick? Because you're thinking, when? When is time going to heal what just might be the deepest wounds that you've ever endured? When does the pain go away? When does time heal all wounds? I have some more news for you. Time alone does not, cannot, and will not heal all wounds. Don't get discouraged. I have good news too. Give me a minute. When a surgeon performs an operation, does he make an incision and conduct the surgery and then say, well, time will heal this wound? No. That's silly. That's ridiculous. The surgeon uses appropriate tools and he checks on the healing process regularly. And eventually the wound does heal, and it usually leaves some kind of scar. Now, let's look at curveballs the same way. Are you truly waiting for time to heal your wound? Because if you are, all you're going to accomplish is a whole bunch of waiting. And just because your curveball, it may not be a physical wound, it's a wound all the same. And time alone cannot be the only factor. Just like a surgeon, you need tools too. You need to get your hands on tools of every kind. Books, magazines, audio aids, seminars, the internet, coaching, counseling, networking, anything and everything that you need to get hitting back at the curveball. If you are just sitting around waiting for time to heal a wound, you're that patient on the operating table with a wide open wound that is not going to be healed by time alone. Commit to getting the tools that you need to create the healing that you want. Okay? I have a real quick story for you. When we talk about turning hurt into hope and hitting back at curveballs and making your way back from challenge or tragedy, I have a wonderful story. I want to take you back to 1989 when shoulder pads could double as bedroom pillows. Anyone remember that? Hair defied gravity, hair band was on the radio. You know all those adorable pregnant women with the adorable baby bumps and the glowing skin and the shiny hair and the tons of energy, and they're smiling and they're just full of adorableness? No, I wasn't one of them. I was at my 5-month, I'm going to be pregnant forever doctor's appointment, and my particular look could only be described as balloonalicious. This is for real. Glowing and shiny hair, try skin and hair oily enough to solve all of the country's gasoline woes. Full of energy, I was president of the Laying Down and Leave Me Alone Society. At that doctor's appointment, I discovered that I'd gained 42 of what would eventually become 84 pounds. And I fell apart sobbing. Why couldn't I be one of those beautiful, adorable, glowing, perfect, baby bumpy women? I cried on that day. It was my best friend of 29 years who bravely helped me to see reason. Yes, bravely. Would you want to have to reason with a woman the size of Massachusetts on hormone overload? Because I would not. Here's what she said. In the first place, you were never supposed to be able to get pregnant, and you did. Do you get what a miracle that is? Maybe you'll never be exactly the same, but you're going to have a healthy, happy baby. Look at everything else like a blank canvas that you can paint however you want. And I've never forgotten those words, a blank canvas that you can paint any way you want. Since then, and with most of you, I've been presented with many blank canvases in my life. I've experienced and recovered from the deaths of both my husband and my father within 4 months of one another. I experienced and recovered from the devastating emotional and financial ruin that resulted from my husband's illness and death. Along the way, as a single parent, I managed to get that healthy, happy baby to a healthy, happy adulthood. And again, I have the privilege of living a life in service to those in need, and a beautiful family, fantastic colleagues, and wonderful friends to share every bit of it with. Folks, whatever challenges come, and though you may occasionally wonder when or if you will ever smile again, you must continue moving forward, because life is not meant to be spent in any kind of poverty. Choose instead to hit back hard at the curveballs and fill your blank canvases with a life that you choose and with a life that you love. Before I invite questions, one final story. During an appearance on a recent radio show, the host asked me to share what he called a magic question. And he said, if you had one thing to share with everybody in America who's listening, what would you say? And this is what I said. It's all about walls and windows. Yesterday is a wall. If you keep trying to change yesterday, or live in your past, or remain sad or angry or bitter about your past, whatever that past involves, you are constantly running up against that wall. Okay? Tomorrow's the window, and it's just waiting to be opened. There's a life out there. It's waiting for you. What are you waiting for? You can chart the course that you want your life to take. You can take the baby steps forward. You can paint your canvas with a beautiful picture of a life that you love and that you can't wait to get up every morning to go out and live. And I close with something that I wrote in 2001, 4 months after I'd lost my husband, 2 weeks after I'd lost my father, and that 11 years later eventually became the prologue to Happily Even After. Whatever the path I choose to take on my healing journey, it is my path to choose and to take. My path is unique because I am unique and is therefore not subject to opinion. I accept that I will make mistakes on this journey for which there is no map and no direction, no easy or quick way out or through. I will have difficult days. I will fall short of my expectations and the expectations of those whom I love. I will lose my way, but I will find my way back. I will recover and learn from my mistakes. I will have wonderful days that counter the difficult. I will chart my course and my direction. I will exceed my expectations while discovering that those whom I love also love me in return and without condition, expecting nothing more from me than I am able to give. And while I know that the healing journey is a process, as long as I am moving forward slowly, determinedly, and with purpose, the healing journey is not simply a process. It is also a promise. I want to thank you again for having me this morning, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you have. Anybody have any questions? Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes. Stand up. Stand up. Got to stand up.
I need to sit because I've got my leg in a brace.
Oh, okay, then, all right.
Thank you. I have two questions.
Yes.
Because of the experience that you have in this arena, you probably have unique perspective. I'm wondering if there is any validity in your experience to the Kubler-Ross 5 phases of grief. And the second question I have, again, based on your experience, what role does the spiritual or religious play in terms of helping, hindering, or no role in people dealing with the grief that life throws at them?
Those are fantastic questions. The first, does everybody know what Steve is referring to when he talks about Dr. Kubler-Ross? I actually addressed that in the book, although I do not call her by name. With no disrespect meant to the good doctor, and I recognize that I could be stepping on toes and being controversial, I fly in the face of the 5 steps. And the reason is, and Toby and I were speaking about this earlier, people want to make grief very nice and neat and packaged, and they want us all to fit into these categories. And I get so many questions. Well, Carole, I didn't go through all 5 steps. What's wrong with me? Or I went from denial to this, and it wasn't chronological. What's wrong with me? And, some people don't go through all 5 steps. Some people don't. Some people go through them, but not in order. I just don't like anything that is formulaic and pat, because it causes people to question their own healing journeys. I didn't bother with denial or bargaining or anything. I went from diagnosis to angry to how are we going to fight this. I didn't have time for all that other stuff because I'm not nice and I'm not patient. So that's what. That's why I fly in the face of that, and I understand that there are people who would argue that, and I also understand that my approach to grief recovery is not for everybody. You have to align yourself with what is going to benefit you best. And as to the spiritual aspect, I chose to write from a secular place because if I wrote from a faith-based place, I would be writing for, Jewish widows, which I thought might be limiting. So I wanted to write for as many people as I could. So I chose to write from a secular slant. That said, I'm a very spiritual person. I absolutely, which I refer to in the book, I did consult our rabbi more practically and less spiritually, but I absolutely believe that spirituality does play a role in not just getting through the storm, but sending the thank you note afterwards. Thank you, God, for getting me through this storm and putting me on a path to healing. It's just not a teaching tool for me. There's wonderful, wonderful grief books out there that do write or are authored from a spiritual angle, and I absolutely encourage you to avail yourselves of those resources. It's just not the way that I chose to write. Any more questions? Because those are really good. Any more? Hi.
Hi there. On this topic, I believe you've covered it so thoroughly. I've never seen such a great, organization. So I love this.
Thank you.
So my question is, had this never occurred to you, what do you imagine your gift to the world would be? You seem like you're on a path to offer something. So had this not been the topic, what do you think it would be?
And that's our time. Good night. I've always had a passion for writing. The first time I saw my name in print, it was in 7th grade at my junior high school in Lakewood. And I saw my name in print, and I thought, this is pretty cool. So I've always loved writing. Being in the legal profession allowed me to write-ish. That's pretty niche. So I loved writing, and I wanted to make a difference somehow in people's lives. I thought I could do that in the legal profession. Not so much. So now I feel like I am finally living a dream and a destiny. And 2 months before Mike died, he said, you've got to find a way to use this experience to good by helping others. And at that time, I didn't have the first idea what he meant. I really didn't. And 5 years after that, it became clear when I began writing. I don't know if I would call it a gift to the world. I would call it more, I was looking for something and I couldn't find it. So it's a result of everything I was looking for and couldn't find. That is a really thought-provoking question. But I would like to think that we have eased the way for a few people in a path that nobody signs up for, nobody enjoys, and yet it's what you've been handed. And I'd like to think that we have a hand in helping them. I am getting the sign that that is my time. Oh, can I take one more question? Okay, one more.
Thank you, Lynette.
She's going to get the hook right now.
If one listens carefully, which I did, I think I heard you say, don't let anybody rush you on your grief. Give yourself the grieving time,
right,
whatever it is on your personal clock.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, you also said, don't get stuck living in the past.
Right.
So
what's the
So
cutoff?
how do you, what are the signs of when your grieving is done? You already got the question, but wherever you want to jump in there, but maybe it's, how do you know the grieving's done and it's time to move forward?
People always reveal themselves. They don't realize it, but they will always reveal when they feel stuck. They will not come up and say, I'm stuck. What they will say is, it's usually a number of years. And they will say, it's been 5 years, and I haven't gone out on a date. I haven't gone to a movie. I haven't gotten on a plane. And what they're saying is, I really want to do these things. I don't know how to start. I'm being held back. Sometimes it's the opinions that surround the person that's holding them back because they're really afraid of what other people will think. How do I know this? I was one of them. I could have entitled these books, Don't Let This Happen to You. I didn't think it was catchy titles. But a lot of this does come from personal perspective and experience. My moving forward for me was good timing. I never felt stuck in a place of grieving. But other people, and I deal with tens of thousands of people, when they express a desire to move forward and they haven't done it yet, whatever it is, what they're saying is, I feel stuck. And that's the issue. That's the underlying issue. Anyway, Lynette is going to get the hook. So thank you once again, everybody. You've been wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you again, Carole. That was absolutely wonderful and beautiful.